Right, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. You managed to get here successfully. It's always a good start. So I'm for the next 40 odd minutes, I'm going to be running through and delving into the book Become a Super Salesforce Consultant Administrator. Getting the wrong book now. All distracted by the session at the beginning. So I'm going to be delving into the chapters of Become a Super Salesforce Administrator. And this book looks at the 4 different roles and hats you wear as a Salesforce administrator, and it looks at the 25 tasks that you'll be doing in your job. Now, what I want to say up front and clearly to you all, so you don't get overwhelmed from it, is that these 25 tasks you are not going to be able to do from day one, right? These are about things that you are going to master in your role over a period of time. Every time you master different tasks and you would develop those skills, that will increment a pay increase, right, as well. So if you're starting out as a newbie, junior admin, you're going to develop all these skills over time, and that will lead you to a senior administrator and a consultant level, and your salary is going to increase with all of this development. If you're starting out new in a junior admin role, what's really, really important though is that you have people around you, or you can bring in experts, like a support contract from a consultancy or other team members who will play these different parts for you, because you will not know how to do all of this from day one. You won't have all the skills to do it from day one. You can focus on upskilling in those areas that you want to upskill in and develop. There might be areas that I talk about today that you think, oh gosh, that's not really for me. And that's where you can bring in somebody from a consultancy, for example, or you can have other team members in your team who might do some of those roles for you. So I don't want you to go away overwhelmed, is what I'm saying. What I want you to do is think about this as an opportunity to develop your skill set and to go, right, I'm going to master these different elements of it. And I'm also going to make sure that there's budget and support around you to do those things that you're not yet proficient in or that you don't want to do. So I'm just going to say that up front before I start this, and anybody's thinking, oh my gosh, I've got to do all of these different things. So this book also isn't about how to pass the admin exam. What's really important is that when you do your admin exam and you practice for the admin, it's about technical competency. It's not about how do you manage a system in real life. And that's what, at Supermums, we want to train you to be the best that you can be. And what's really important is that we train you not only in the admin competencies of let's build an object, let's build fields, let's build workflows, they're technical competencies. But when you're actually in the job managing a system, what is it that you need to do on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis? That's what I want to set you up for success. So I've actually been talking about this since 2019. I did my first presentation at Dreamforce, presented on this topic, and I had 40 tasks then, to be fair, so I brought them down a little bit and consolidated them a little bit, and wrap that into, I've always talked about the 4 roles of a Salesforce admin. So I've been talking about this. We did presentations on it. We've had a free download on it. But my role at Supermums and my reason for being here is really to make sure that we are producing the best talent in the ecosystem. We're equipping you with the tools, the templates, the training, to get fantastic job opportunities and fantastic salaries. That's why I set up Supermums. So we have never been just a training course, let's just learn this and off you go. We pride ourselves on being really comprehensive in our training and our programs, and the book is an addition to that. So if you haven't bought the book yet, it's a great addition. It's going to go through all of the content in more detail than I'll cover tonight. This is really that overview and obviously a slight insight into all of these different areas that we'll cover. So for those of you that don't know my background, I became an accidental Salesforce admin back in 2010. I was looking and managing I set up a system for my business that I was running at a time, which was a business and career coaching company, and really trained myself up. I worked with a consultant for a little bit, but basically built most of the system myself and managed it, and just really got addicted to it, as many people do, and kept investing in training. So I did my app builder, I did the consultancy skills course, I trained up in agile project management, change management, business analysis. So again, this is why I'm saying you might not have all this from day one, but these are the skills that you're going to be training up in. These are things that you want to do to keep building your confidence, your skill set, your capacity. they are skills that you are going to need in a Salesforce role as you go on. So I've been working with Salesforce since 2010. I set myself up as a freelance consultant after running that original nonprofit, and then grew a Salesforce consultancy to a team of 20. We worked on over 700 projects, 350 nonprofits during that time. And so I've got lots of insight, but equally been in that position where we've got to empower those customers to manage their system. So a lot of what I learned and the practicalities and the methods that I learned running the consultancy is now what I teach on what we teach on our consultancy skills program. So I deliver the consultancy skills course and train people up in business analysis, agile project management, change management. But equally, so we've trained people on how do you manage your system? What is it you need to do? So I'm delighted that we've been able to bring this book to fruition, thanks to quite a few sponsors as well that have sponsored different chapters of it. And I'll be talking about some of those sponsors as we go through. And we've been running Supermums for 8 years and training people on from admin upwards through different courses: Data Cloud, Marketing Cloud, CRM Analytics, consultancy skills, and MuleSoft are the different courses that we run. And just, incredibly passionate about making sure, as I say, you get great career opportunities and great salaries and you're progressing as part of it. So some of you are alumni and you've been part of Supermums for a while, you know all about us, whereas you might be new and joining us today. As I say, we're an authorised Salesforce training provider, but alongside all our training that we do, we also have a recruitment service. So if you're looking for jobs, you can register with us on recruitment. And if you're hiring, we can help you hire great talent. And if you are looking to volunteer and give back, you can register as a volunteer mentor with us as well and mentor the students coming through the programme. And we equally work with companies who sponsor us and say hire talent. So we have people all over the world that have joined our community, really rich and diverse community everywhere. And as I say, part of that is seeing it tonight as well. There's obviously a lot of people from all over the world joining us, from Australia to Ireland to USA to Scotland and Slovakia and everywhere else that I saw in the chat. So welcome. This is the code if you want to grab the book. We'll share it again at the beginning, but this is the code to grab the book, which is on Amazon. So it got rated as bestseller on the day one when everybody was buying it in 4 different countries and 4 categories, which is really exciting. If you have read it, please do leave me a review on Amazon. I'm keen to get some reviews on there as well, so other people will find it if you loved it. So let's delve into the content, because I think if you're like me, you like learning by hearing, and if I can teach you stuff this way, then that's great, in addition to the book. So the things that we're going to delve into over the next hour is the 4 roles of a Salesforce admin. So the first role is about being the data champion. It is about managing security of the system and making sure that you have good data integrity so your users trust the data. It's one of the big reasons why systems fail. People don't use them because they don't trust the data. And equally, you've got to make sure that the system is complying with data protection and that there's no data breaches. So we're going to be delving into that. The second is about your role as the problem solver. And I think that's the big thing of being a Salesforce professional, is that you are actually solving problems every day and making people happier, right? That's your satisfaction, is you're producing solutions and giving people that, light bulb at the end of their day. They've got a better way of working, they've got what they need, you're always solving problems for them. So we're going to be looking at system management and how you manage the system to keep it healthy and functioning for everybody. Then we're going to look at you as the change agent. And this is where you are managing and supporting, empowering, enthusing. I talk about 3 E's actually: empowering, enthusing, and educating the users on a daily basis to make sure that they know how to use the system, that you maximize user adoption, because again, that is another key risk of a system failing and people not using it anymore. You are about managing that change. We're going to be talking about some strategies for that. And then the 4th role is about you as the innovator. This is where, you can look at all those shiny new toys and go, oh, what new product could we implement today? What new product can I learn? And actually, as a Salesforce professional, that's something that you really enjoy and love. What's really important here is that you obviously are listening to what the business needs, and you are thinking about the technical solutions. mute. You are looking at the technical solutions that are a response to that and are going to solve the problem. So your CRM roadmap needs to have a really good business case where you can demonstrate the return on investment in order to convince the executive sponsors that are going to invest in it. So we're going to be talking about how you would do that, what you need to have in place, and those different angles. So as I say, we're going to cover quite a lot of things. Some of these things you will need to do from day one. Some of these things you might have other people to do, and you can develop your training to do them as well. So welcome everybody that's joining. I can see we've still got people joining. So this is the overview of the 25 tasks against the 4 different roles. As you can see, they're broken down by daily, weekly tasks, monthly tasks, and quarterly tasks. This is also downloadable from our website as a quick handy printout. So if you want to navigate to this link, supermums.org/resources, you can download the free checklist there, which gives you, as I say, this sort of overview. So you've got it printed out as a handy version there for you. So take a snapshot of that if you want as well. But this is, what you want to do if you're going for you will all be at different stages. But what I want to suggest to you is if you are going for job interviews, present this in your job interview. Say to them, like, I understand my job as a Salesforce admin is to manage the system. My 4 roles are this. This is my 25 tasks. This is how I manage my time. Use this because it will make you look incredibly organized, that you understand what your job role is. And it will just really impress them that you have a strategy for your role and you understand it all. And they might not even know that all of this exists. So being able to talk through these different things with them might be what they need, because maybe they've never hired an admin before, maybe they don't know much about Salesforce, it depends what kind of role you're going into. So use this in your interview. The other place might be is if you have a manager that doesn't really understand your job and what you do, because maybe again you're the only solo admin there, use this to explain to your manager what you do, but also negotiate the pay increase. Because what's important is that if they're recruiting you as a junior admin, you're going to be on a lower salary, but the expectation is that you can't do all of these things as a junior admin. But if you are progressing and learning and getting certifications and skills in these different areas, if you're competent to do all of these different things, you're going to be at a senior admin / consultant level where your salary is at least maybe 10, 15, 20K higher than the junior admin salary. So you want to be discussing with your manager, making sure that they're clear on everything that you need to do, what your tasks are, and that you can discuss that progression plan with them. Now, this is all in our book. So in the book as well, it talks about the career progression plans and everything as part of that. So, bear in mind that all of this development, helps you educate people around you and what you've got to do. So let's delve into these different areas in a little bit more detail, and welcome to those that have just joined. Don't worry, you haven't missed too much. I will be going into now the 4 different roles and the different tasks. So I will continue. So the first deep dive we're going to do is about you as the data champion, where you need to safeguard information held by your organization. Now, there is a level of pressure here that it is really important that you are making sure that you're compliant with data protection and you're making sure that there's no security breaches. So this is one of the things that you really need to make sure that you're on top of, and that you are putting these tasks in your diary to do, because if you don't do them, as I say, there are risks. So there could be a data breach where somebody's accessing your data who no longer should be for any of it. It might be an ex-employee because their user access has not been taken away from them, or it might be somebody's managed to log in because the MFA wasn't activated. There's different reasons why there might be a data breach. It might be that data's been overwritten for some reason because of an integration. Data breaches and overwrites can happen for a variety of reasons, which is why it's important to have things like backup solutions and everything else, and I say the security top notch. So it's not hard to manage all this stuff, but it's making sure it's in your diary, and so it's not something to be scared of if you're doing it. But if there is that situation where there is a data breach, then obviously there could be things like financial penalties for the company, there's risk of reputation, and people might not trust it, so might no longer use the system. So hopefully that's enough of a reason for you to kind of focus in on it. What I'm going to do though is suggest, before we go into like the tasks and how you manage it, what you want to do is do a baseline and do an initial review of what the baseline is for your organization. So the first thing that you want to do, I'm just putting people on mute. The first thing you want to do is make sure that you've analysed all the risks related to security and data. Now, we have you covered on this because you might be like, what are the risks? How do I know what they are? In the book related to the chapter, we have a download that you can take, which has like all the different risks, like a risk mitigation strategy in it. And that means that you can go through that and go, right, actually, you know, these are all the things that I need to be thinking about. Let's tick and check them off. So do your risk mitigation around your data and security, and understand the data that you currently collect. Like, it's really important to understand, like, do we have special data? Do we have sensitive data? Do we have any sort of financial data? You know, what data are you collecting in the system? Like, you just want to get a real good sense of that and what classification that data is in, aligned to data protection. The next thing to do is to evaluate how to measure good data integrity. Now, I've walked into many an organisation where they say we don't trust the data. And I'm like, okay, well, how do we know you don't trust the data? If we were creating a dashboard that showed us good data integrity, what would that look and feel like? You know, what would we be seeing to know that we have good data integrity? So getting really clear on what good data integrity is, how to measure it, is what the discussions you want to have. And this can be a really interesting discussion because it's really meaty. Like, it's not an easy conversation where you're just going to pluck it off the top of your head and go, oh, we need to see X, Y, Z. It will need quite a bit of thought, and to a view that, you know, well, how do you evidence to people that you have good data integrity? So obviously that could be, you know, I'm calling up Joe Bloggs and his numbers no longer working, or Joe Bloggs has moved organization. You're always going to have some of that, because obviously if nobody's seen it or updated that they've moved, or there's no way of doing it, there's those elements of it. But good data integrity also relates to missing data in fields. You know, do you need core essential data which needs to be populated to make sure that the management team can get the reports that they need? Because quite often good data integrity is where managers are saying, I can't trust this data for my management reports because half the data isn't there, it's blank. That's where your problems lie. So the place to start with it is to say to the managers, the department leads, you know, what data is really important to you to understand, you know, what is going on within your team and how to report back to management. And that's where to start with good data integrity. And then you can assess what the current quality of that data is. So that's where you can start to say, well, actually, you know, where are the gaps? How many, you know, use apps like Field Trip, for example, to assess how, you know, what the population of data is in those core fields that you need. So you need to understand the core fields that you need for reporting purposes, and you want to assess the quality of those. And then you need to work on populating that data to get it to 100%, right? And work towards that as your goal. And then the third area on this is to confirm which users should have access to which data. Now, again, I've walked into many an org where everybody has access to all fields and all objects. That's not best practice. Best practice is to lock down fields and objects only to those people that need to see them. And if you don't do that, one, it could mean that certain fields and data is accessible when it shouldn't be from a data protection point of view. But the other is that those users might have overwhelm with the system because they're just seeing too much stuff that they don't need to see, which can also really hamper user adoption. So if you minimize the information, the objects, the fields that they need to see, even the records, you know, it makes it much more user friendly for them and more likely to use it, and also more likely to populate the fields that they actually really need to populate. Then going forward from that, you need to then do this ongoing monitoring and management of data integrity going forward. So this is where it leads me into the next bit of the task that you do, is to manage this data integrity, to make sure that you know what good data integrity is, and you're managing to make sure that that stays at ideally 100%, right? That you know you've got all of the most important information available to your managers, to the users, that they can get the information they need. They trust the data. They need to be able to say to you, they trust the data in the system, and that's your goal, is to maintain that. And part of this will be training the users on how on what is important, what data is important, when they need to populate it, and how to manage it going forward. So you will need to train your users on data integrity, because it's not just down to you. Absolutely not. You can obviously monitor it, and manage it, but your job is to make sure people are trained to fill in the right information, the right points. You can use things like validation rules or compulsory fields or flows or auto population through third-party apps. There's lots of ways to support data integrity. And in the book, we talk through how to do that. We have a free download that talks through all the different ways to evaluate data integrity, but also how to fix data integrity issues. We cover all of those different things. So the areas you're going to manage as a Salesforce administrator is security management. Now, within Salesforce, you have a free, as a free tool in Salesforce, which is the security assessment. So you can click a button and it runs a security audit on your system. You should be doing that 4 times a year as part of your quarterly assessment. That will flag up any potential security risks. You can then fix them, put them in your roadmap and or your backlog, sorry, and decide, what needs to be fixed now and when. So the tools are there to support you with this. You just need to make sure you put it in your diary and you run with that security assessment every quarter to check it. Alongside that, you continue to do the risk assessment. You continue to do that risk mitigation and go, right, have I checked all these things? Are we still in the green? Have a RAG rating for it. Are we still okay with this? And then you should have a data governance strategy, which sort of explains how you do all of this. And alongside that, you need the data management guide. And the data management strategy is really about what are the things you're doing to manage the data. So similar to what I talked about earlier, it's about making sure that you have validation rules or compulsory rules, or you have apps that help clean up data. Data management is about all those different things, those technical skills and functionality that you can use to make sure you keep good data integrity. So data management and governance is about the strategy and the actual day-to-day management of data integrity. Then the fourth area is around contact and consent management. So this is how to manage contacts and consent to align with data protection. Now, every country has, or a region, it depends on where you are, will have a data protection policy. So if you're working for an organization, you might work for an international organization that has data related to different countries, or you might exist in one country and all the data is related to one country. You'll have to understand what the data protection laws are in that country, and then obviously to make sure that all the contacts you're holding in there, you've got that backup to say how they've consented to it. Now, we have a fantastic free data protection course that is sponsored by Cloud Ally. That is available, and I highly recommend that you do it. Again, that is downloadable from the book, and you can learn all about data protection, learn all about this in more detail. Brilliant. Even I, having done this for years, I learned new things from that course. And it goes through all the Salesforce functionality, but also the principles of data protection and things to think about. So again, that's another free download from the book, as sponsored by Cloud Ally. And with Cloud Ally, they're a backup solution. So one of the things also to make sure they're the really cheap, affordable one, but good quality. It does the job, but it's really reasonable. Making sure you've got a backup solution for your organization is really important, because if anything goes wrong, it means you can go back and restore those records. So if an import happens and overwrites anything, if you integrate anything, it overwrites anything, or a user accidentally deletes things, all of these things happen far too frequently, quite frankly. If you've got a backup solution there, it means that you can restore those records and any errors that have been made. So having a backup solution is I would absolutely advocate for being one of the key things you should do as an admin, is to make sure you're talking to your exec sponsors about getting a backup solution in place. The other thing to think about is with Validity, they do data cleansing, data import, data migration. So again, if you need a tool for that, if you work for a non-profit, you can access it for free. If you're working for a commercial organization, it's paid. That helps you clean and manage your data on a regular basis. And then Processity AI helps you track field history on your fields. So from a data protection point of view, you need a field audit for quite a few fields. Any personal data like name, address, phone numbers, their consent, compliance fields related to data protection should all have audit history as well. If you're working in a regulatory environment like finance, for example, again, you'll need field tracking all those fields. Salesforce only give you the capability of tracking data or field history on a certain number of fields, and quite often it's not enough. So Processity is a tool that allows you to do more than the standard field history tracking. So these are tools that I recommend and will support you in these tasks. And then the final thing on the slide is about the data analytics. So going back to the point of having good data, it's where I started the conversation. Is for good data, one, an end user needs to be able to look at Joe Blogs and appreciate and trust that their data is up to date, that the phone number and the address and the email is right. That's one thing. The other thing is that the managers can get the reporting, the dashboards and reports that they need to monitor and manage their team and report to those above them. Data analytics is key. So you want to make sure that you have great reports and dashboards that you're delivering to the managers, because what's really important here to really emphasize is that the senior team, the managers, the ones that will pay your salary or give you a pay rise and will invest in Salesforce and trust it and keep your job. If the managers don't see any value in Salesforce, they're going to bin Salesforce and they're going to bin your team. So your job is 100% to make sure that the managers have the information they need and it's helping them perform in their job, because then they are going to love you and they are going to love the system. So that's the key reason why this is so important. And quite often, a lot of these tasks can be left on the shelf and not dealt with because maybe you're dealing with like the new roadmap stuff, or maybe you're dealing with cases that are coming in from users. And that's all very well, but if this stuff isn't dealt with and the managers are not getting their performance management data and don't love the system, I say they're not going to invest in you or the system going forward. And I've been into organizations where there's a high risk of them backing off Salesforce exactly for that reason, because the managers don't understand Salesforce, the managers aren't using Salesforce, the managers don't trust the data in Salesforce, and they are ready to bin it. So this needs to be like, it's why it's number one in my book. It needs to be actually one of the most important things that you do, is making sure that the data is right and the performance data is key. And they say the managers and the senior managers love the system. So in summary, you've got your weekly, daily tasks, you've got your monthly tasks and your quarterly tasks. So data management, security management on a regular basis. Monthly basis, you'd look at contact and consent management and data analysis. This is where you want your reporting. Quarterly, you do your risk assessment and your data governance and do those tasks. Right, moving on to problem solver. You as a problem solver, this is where you are managing the system, making sure it's clean and healthy, fixing bugs and finding solutions for your users. It's really important, again, to do some preventative work around this rather than having a problem that occurs because you haven't done some of these things. So if you're not managing your system on a regular basis, automations can fail between integrations, for example, or flows might not happen. Again, that might create customer issues or reputation issues, or it might frustrate users. So doing some proactive health checks on the system is really important. Now, if you are starting out in a new role, or you're kind of thinking about this from afresh, one of the things I'd recommend is you do a technical audit of the organization. You map out all the different tech products they're using, including Salesforce products, third-party apps, and anything else. Now, based on that mapping of all the technical tools that they use, you might recommend that you need to integrate different products with Salesforce or replace certain products with Salesforce. And you take that role on where you will advise and introduce some Salesforce solutions that might replace some of those things, because ultimately you want to get to that 360-degree view of a customer where you can look in Salesforce and see everything through integrations or through Salesforce being the single source of truth. Once you've identified what products they use, or what gone through, sorry, that bigger landscape, you then want to drill down into which Salesforce products they use, which are business critical, which are being well used. And I have another template that you can download for this. I have actually got it on the next slide, which is my health check template. Now, when I went into health checks for organizations, we'd look at, for example, Sales Cloud. And within this health check template, we've got all of the features listed for Sales Cloud, all of the technical features that you can use in that product. So when we went into an organization, we would present and say, currently you're using 50% of the features of Sales Cloud. And we would have done business analysis with the team, and we would have been able to present back and say, well, actually, having spoken to your team, you've got the capacity to actually optimize probably 80% of those features. So there's still things that we can put into place here that will actually meet the needs of your team that you're not currently using. So you want to help the organization understand, how much of Service Cloud they're currently using and what else they could use in that stack to optimize their performance and their team. And then you do the same for Service Cloud or any other products they're using. So that's the best practice approach to analyzing product maximization and adoption. The other kind of key point here is to make sure that the products are using the new releases. Again, I've walked into organizations where they've got third-party apps installed and they've never been updated. They're still on version 5.0 from 4 years ago, and they're not using any of the new features. Things are at risk of going wrong because they haven't updated it. So you want to do an audit on the products and their current release status and anything else there. Then you want to assess the document and image storage. Who's saving documents and images to the system? How much file storage space is being used and potentially might be used in the future? Because based on that, you might need a third-party archiving tool or a third-party document and image storing facility that is not going to be using up the file space that Salesforce provides, because that can be quite costly as a solution going forward, and it's very limited as well. So you might want to look at a roadmap for that and to make sure that you understand, what all these documents are. And then finally, you want to review documentation of the org and what has been built and why, if you have it. A lot of orgs might not have got this, but obviously I would highly recommend that you as a Salesforce administrator will create documents for this org and will document, what's been built, why it's been built, what the business rationale is, and all of those good things. So that's where you want to start the process and kind of just get that baseline again. And in terms of ongoing management, so org analysis, I've talked about doing a health check. So this is a template here. Again, it's under the resources tab on our Supermums website. You can download this health check template with all of those product stacks and the different things to go through. But with the health check, you'll do that quarterly. You won't obviously have to do the full thing again, but you can do a check on it and go, right, where are we now? What is it we need? Now, as part of your role as an admin, you can also really harness AI to do a lot of the heavy lifting. So a lot of people are using tools like resources like ChatGPT now to help them as an admin find formulas really quickly. We run an AI skills course which trains you up on how to really use and enhance AI to support you. You can get things done so much quicker, and it will save you a lot of time. The other AI tool is by Sweep. And Sweep has a free download for admins, and it actually documents your org for you using AI. So I'd highly recommend looking at Sweep, and they're free. It's a free tool for admins that will help you document your org. It's amazing all the different things it does, actually. I was really blown away with it. And it tells you, say, maps out your org and what's in there, but it also has a great feature and functionality for collaborating on designing new processes and flows in your system. So you can get people involved in that and start mapping it out. So you want to document your org. I mean, you can use standard paper and pen or process mapping tools for that as well. So you've got options like Sweep or other tools. The next area for this is also introducing DevOps. Now, again, we have a free DevOps course which teaches you all the principles of DevOps, courtesy of GearSet and their platform called DevOps Launchpad. So DevOps might be new to some of you, you might be more established in it, but the reason for learning DevOps is that if you are making changes in an org, it's best practice to do it with a DevOps solution. So you are rolling out new changes in an org with a level of security and protection. If something stopped working or it broke something, you can roll it back really quickly using DevOps. And obviously, the more complexity of the system gets, DevOps is there to really support you with that. So you can start learning DevOps, and that can become a specialist area for you if that's something that you enjoy. Document management I've talked about just now, so how to manage documents in your org. So you might need, if you have a heavy reliance on document storage, you might want to look at third-party tools like Box, for example. And Box has a free sort of storage solution to maintain all your documents in Salesforce, and also quite a few AI features. So it's much more comprehensive than just a file storage solution in Salesforce. But you need a strategy for that to manage files going forward. And then finally, integration management. This is a big part for any org. Pretty much 70% of Salesforce projects or systems will have an integration with another tool. So this is all about managing data flows. Again, these things can break if they're not managed properly. Conveyor is a tool that is a click, not code solution for helping with integration between different products. So I'd highly recommend checking that out and seeing if it's something that can support you if you need integration between two things. And obviously that's a cheaper version. If you are working for an enterprise customer or client, you'd probably be looking at Data Cloud or MuleSoft as your integration tools. So again, there's different levels, different solutions you might use as part of it. So in summary, on a weekly and daily basis, you're going to be looking at your error logs, you're going to be using AI functionality and features, you're going to be practicing DevOps. On a monthly basis, you're going to review your document storage, you're going to be updating, documenting your org in whichever way you want to do that, and you're going to be overseeing and checking your integrations. On a quarterly basis, you're going to be doing that org analysis and overviewing, just checking in on the org and the products that are being used. You might update the technical audit if it needs any updates. And you'll also be doing a product release management, checking if any of your products that you use have had a new release and if you need to apply any of the functionality. Right, number 3 is about change agent, about how you keep your house in order and your inhabitants happy, most importantly. And if we don't keep our users happy and they're not engaged in the system, it's going to lead to poor data because they won't input their data. If we don't have good data, it's going to lead to low trust user adoption. Then we're going to have operational efficiencies, and then we're going to have unusable performance management data, right? So this very much aligns with that first topic around data management. If you don't have good data, there's a problem. But the thing is, the user management, if you haven't trained your users or engaged and enthused and empowered your users to use Salesforce, you're going to end up with poor data, right? So in actual fact, you could start with the users. Now, user management is, again, there's an initial review that I encourage you to all to do to understand your users, how they use the system, who they are, what their characters are, and I'll talk through some of this in a minute. But this is all based on change management methodologies, and this is one of the things we teach in our consultancy skills course. There's a science to this. It was my most favorite course that I did because having walked into different organizations with different personalities, different cultures, different appetites, I'm like, when I started out, I was like, oh my God, I really don't know how to handle some of this stuff. And when I did the change management course, I was like, oh my God, okay, I have a strategy. Like, this makes sense. Like, I understand how to go about some of these things. So if you're feeling underconfident and not sure about this, it's because you need to get trained in it. You are not going to be able to just solve all these things and walk into the job. Get trained up with us on change management so you can empower your users. So some of the things that you want to do when we advocate in change management is to do a stakeholder mapping. So with stakeholder mapping, you want to map out the different users of the system and what products they use. What does this team use? What does this team use? Have a clear picture. And then evaluate how to measure good user adoption with clear KPIs. What does good user adoption look like? And again, what would a dashboard look like if you could see that? How do you prove to your managers, your boss, that you've got good user adoption? Again, a really meaty conversation. We have got some examples in the health check download, but there's more nuanced ones to each organization, right? Because it will be based on what data has been populated. It's not just how many times they log in, it's, what data is in the system, how good are they populating the things that need to be populated. So good user adoption, I say, isn't about logging in once a day. It's more about, are they, what are those KPIs? Is it about the data? Is it about these different elements? So you want to get clear and you want to build that dashboard about it. Next, you want to confirm the culture of the organization. Now, there are 4 different cultures typical. I mean, there might be more than that, but through our change management course and what I learned, there's 4 different main cultures of an organization. To give you an example of that, if the culture of the organization is a machine-led environment, it very much aligns to a regulatory type environment. So they are governed by maybe financial or healthcare compliance. Now, in a machine type environment, you are going to be really doing a top-down approach. This is where the managers are going to be deciding on what the system needs to do. And then there's going to be training that is telling the users how to do their job. And the training strategy is likely to involve some sort of LMS system where you'll produce training videos and you will upload those to an LMS system so you can track and monitor that people have watched them, completed like a quiz or some sort of assessment like you do on Trailhead. And you've got that audit trail that they've completed the training, because in a compliance-led environment, you need that audit trail. You need to make sure that everybody is absolutely doing what they need to do. And they are being told that this is a way to do their job. And if they don't, the likelihood is they're going to get a sack, right? Because it would be part of their new contractual obligations. So that type of approach and how you operate is going to be very different to the other 3 different cultures for the other organizations with the 3 different other cultures. And so you need to adopt your style and amend your approach to empowering users in very different ways in different types of organizations. Now, the other thing to think about with this and your approach is that assessing the different stakeholder personalities. We talk about 4 different sort of camps that people might sit in, which, there might be the champions, the people that are really excited about it, but you might get the sleepers, for example, the sleepers that just don't want to know about this, and you need to wake them up to it. And then you've got the blockers, the ones that are really the poison ivy that really don't want this to happen. So stakeholders can sit in those 4 camps, but you can also get different learning styles. And so you need to make sure that you're rolling out training to align to their learning styles. And when I talk about learning styles, I talk about audio, digital, kinesthetic, and visual. You want to give a gold standard training strategy that's going to cover all those 4 different learning styles. Because if you just deliver in one way, it's not going to lend itself to all the other people, and then they won't get it, and then they won't adopt the system, and then you've got a problem. So within this, we talk about, say, the gold standard training strategy, where you're delivering training in a way that's going to cover those 4 different learning styles to maximize user adoption. And the final thing is that you want to have a really good motivational strategy in place for encouraging good user adoption. Now, the motivational strategy will very much align to the culture of the organization. I've worked with some organizations where they are really into like trailhead and gamification, and they have a leaderboard like on their wall and they're all doing it, right? I mean, that's brilliant. There's other organizations that absolutely are not going to entertain that whatsoever. And they will have a different motivational strategy, which might be all about what's on the reports and dashboards. Like if we see it in Salesforce, the mantra that I should always teach and I was taught is, if it isn't in Salesforce, it doesn't exist. So if you are basing, management awards, team performance awards based on data in Salesforce, obviously they are going to be really motivated to make sure their data is correct in Salesforce, because that's where they're going to get the prize for something. So very different motivational strategies for different types of organizations, different users and everything else. And you've got to understand all of this in order to know how to go about it. You need to understand the culture, the culture, the different personalities, the different temperament of the organization, what good user adoption looks like, all of that before you can start managing this on a day-to-day basis. So the things to manage are change management, how to facilitate change within an organization. So that's everything we kind of just talked about there. The next thing is making sure that you've got a support desk set up so you can facilitate and manage support requests from users. So if any user needs you, they will log a case in the system and that will come to you. You don't want people emailing, Slacking, WhatsApping you, phoning you, all these different things. You kind of want one sort of passage of communication, because that means that you can capture everything in one place. Next is you want to have Salesforce champions. You want to mobilize departmental champions in each of those different areas. So you have a team of people, and they are really your ears and eyes on the ground, listening to what's going on in that team, and they're reporting back to you. They might even have delegated admin responsibilities. Then you want to make sure you're training your end users using this gold standard training strategy that aligns to different learning styles. In terms of product roadmap, and obviously that's where we'll go next, is you also want to be looking at how you can harness AI to foster user adoption. So tools like Rocket Phone, for example, and Sharing Pics are using a lot of AI functionality now. And if you embed those in your Service Cloud or your Sales Cloud implementation, they are going to really cut down a lot of administration work for your team, and it's going to make them love the system more. So if there's a real clear business case to implement third-party apps like Rocket Phone and Sharing Pics, then it's definitely worth looking at that if it's going to save everybody time and money and headaches around admin. And then the final one is around this measuring user adoption. So tools like Improved Apps has a free tool resource that you can download to support with managing user adoption. So that's definitely something that I'd recommend and look at as part going forward. So in summary, on a weekly, daily basis, we've got the support desk and training that you'll be doing. On a monthly basis, you've got measuring user adoption and working with your Salesforce champions and having a monthly meeting with them. And then quarterly, you're going to be reviewing your change management strategy and looking at potential AI functionality, because I tell you what, the speed of technology innovation at the moment is incredible. So it's just something like, this is the bit that you love, right? Let's have a look what's out there. What are people doing? Attending events like this, attending demo jams, etc. Embracing some of this AI functionality, which is going to help your users, is something that you're going to have to keep thinking and looking at and doing. And finally, the CRM roadmap. Appreciate we're slightly over time because I think we started a bit late, but we will finish in the next sort of 5 minutes. So the innovator, this is where you are looking at those products for the future, but it's got to be based on organizational need, and there's got to be a clear ROI. But if you can demonstrate the ROI and business case, then that's obviously where you're going to get your hands dirty with new products, which is very exciting. Now, if you don't have a product, if you don't have a CRM roadmap, you are going to end up with multiple systems. If you have multiple systems, go back to that technical audit, you're going to end up with low user adoption, poor customer intelligence, will lead to poor business performance, and you won't get the ROI that you want. So you want to be integrating, consolidating your systems. And what the key things that I'd recommend when you head into this sort of area is you want to first understand the 3-year business plan for the organization. this is where you are putting your management hat on and going, right, how am I going to help this organization achieve its ambitions? You are the technology evangelist. You're the one that's going to help them harness the power of technology to make their dreams come true, right? To help the managers achieve their goals. So you really need to understand what their business plan is, what the management KPIs are, and then you need to also evaluate the biggest challenges or opportunities they have to realize their ambitions. Again, you've got to make the managers and the management team your best friends, and you've got to help them, right? They've got to love Salesforce. You've got to make sure that you're presenting things to them that are going to solve their challenges and help them achieve the dreams. Now, once you understand this information, you can then appraise the technical products that are going to add the most value. And you will then want to present a business case on, what the return investment will be if you implement Rocket Phone or Sharon Pix, for example. So you want to build the business case for the roadmap. It could be a new Salesforce product, it could be the third-party app, ISV, etc. But you will only get these invested in if they help solve the problems of the managers and you understand the business plan, because you are helping, say, be the evangelist for that organization. So the things that you want to manage and be part of, and if you don't have these skills now, it's where I definitely recommend skilling up with, and that's something that we can support you with, is within your organization, you need to have a center of excellence. And this is a governance structure where management team and the Salesforce team will actively look at, what are we investing in the CRM roadmap and what ROI are we getting back from the products already? You want to have clear KPIs for measuring the ROI. How do we know we're getting what we need from these Salesforce products? Is it achieving the right results? So ROI is really, really important, and discussing this in Center of Excellence on a regular basis is important. Now, the next thing is agile project management. And this is because you are always going to have a to-do list. But what I'll emphasize is that as a Salesforce admin, you don't have really, it's not down to your decision about what requirements or what cases you are working on in what order. From an agile project management point of view, you need to understand the business goals and the business priorities and the business pain points, and you need to use that to prioritize your task list, your backlog that you're working through. And so when you wake up in the morning, you say, what am I going to do today? When you're using agile project management techniques, and the methodology that I teach is the DSDM methodology, you wake up and go, right, I'm going to focus on the tasks that are the most important and business critical requirements right now that have been told to me from the management team. So the Center of Excellence is a management team. They're explaining the business ambition, they're explaining the business challenges, they're helping you prioritize your daily workload, and you're guided by that. So that's why agile project management is so important, because it gives you a way of managing your backlog, of prioritizing things in a way that is always aligned to the business critical requirements. Now, in order to gather these requirements, you also need, either it's you or somebody else in your team, to be skilled in business analysis to keep gathering requirements and evolving the system. So you can skill up in business analysis, and that will teach you how to gather and document requirements for the system. Or you work with somebody, whether that's a consultancy, or you bring in a team member as a contractor or an employee who's a business analyst that works alongside you. I would always advocate as a Salesforce admin, particularly if you're solo admin, that you always take out a support contract with a consultancy partner. So we have some brilliant consultancy partners that support us at Supermums, Cube84, Exa, CloudGuy, and Nebula. They all specialize in different areas, and they all offer different support contracts. But you, as I mentioned, you've got all these 25 tasks and you're managing different products. You are never going to have all of the skills to do these right away, and things you might not ever be able to do. And you might have more advanced development work in your system that is beyond your capability. So I'd always advocate that there's budget within an organization for a support contract, where the support contract can mentor you, or they could do work like business analysis for you if you don't want to do it yourself. They could build stuff that you're not able to build, like more development work, for example. it's really important that you as a Salesforce administrator feel that you can ask for that, and that's okay, that's normal. It is very normal to have an SI that might be supporting you. It might not be needed all of the time, but certainly if you're newer into the organization where you want somebody to fall back on, and to say mentor you, particularly in the early days, or that you've got a system that's got a lot of dev work in it, you might not need an in-house developer, but again, it's maybe more advanced than you need. That's where you can have some of this support. So these are the areas that we'd sort of recommend you train up in, or you get some additional support. So on a weekly, daily basis, you're going to be prioritizing all your tasks using Agile project management, which really helps you manage your backlog and time, work out what you need to do now, what can be shifted to later. On a monthly basis, you'll be doing business analysis of teams, digging into how their processes, mapping all their processes out. You'll be doing the KPIs, reporting back on the KPIs and looking at the return investment from the system, because especially when you want a pay increase, or you're going into that meeting to say, I want to advance my salary, you're going to have to demonstrate the ROI you've created for that organization. If you can say, well, actually, I've helped this organization through implementing XYZ, I've helped this organization gain another £100,000 or whatever, or hopefully more than that, £500,000 of income because you've done a payment integration tool, you're worth the weight in gold to them. So make sure that you demonstrate the ROI that you're generating for that organization in order to ask for that pay rise, or to hire new team members or whatever it is. And then on a quarterly basis, you have your Centre of Excellence meetings, you check in. They might be more regular than that if you're doing a lot of development work, but all of these things are really important. So overall, that is the 25 tasks. As I say, in the book, we go into everything in more detail on those chapters. Each of those tasks has more blurb. If you are interested in training up in those consultancy skills around business analysis, change management, agile project management, and you've got questions around any of these areas that we've spoken about today, then our consultancy skills course is available either on demand, or you can do it over 12 weeks with live instructor-led sessions with me on a Tuesday, normally at 3 p.m. GMT time, and also get a one-to-one mentoring session. So typically with investing in these skills, you are going to get that pay increase, that salary increase. So it's that ROI that you're looking for. Many of our supermums have come through and got the 10K increase within a year or two, and then jumped again, and are after 4 or 5 years in the system have jumped 20 grand, right? Because they've invested in these skill sets. So our consultancy skills course for the 12-week course starts next week. On the 22nd of April, it's 1,500, so it's a good ROI in terms of, if you get that and you develop these skills, you can obviously get the pay increase over time. Or you can buy it on demand without the live instructor-led sessions. Lynn will put the link in the chat so you can download a pack and have a look at those the course content in more detail. So yeah, Lynn, if you can put that in the chat. And the on-demand say doesn't have live instructor sessions or the mentoring, so that's all there. But the key thing about this is you will be empowered to gather and document requirements confidently. You'll be enabled to prioritize and manage requirements and workload, and you're going to feel equipped to engage your users and maximize adoption at the end of the day. So these are all skills that an admin will need or develop at certain points in their journey. So I just really hope that's just been a really useful overview for you. And I say, hopefully the next steps of how we can support you if you want to upskill. I've just put the link in here again for the chat, the book. If anybody wants to got any questions, please do put them in the chat. And we'll save this off. Save it down, and I'll send it out to recording. But thank you, everyone. I hope you've all enjoyed that. It's been really useful. Let me just go through some of the questions here now. So Toby, are all the tools for cleaning and assessing data from Salesforce apps or secondary Salesforce, or they're all requiring learning independently on top of an admin? So yeah, most of the apps for cleaning and assessing data are mostly third-party apps, Toby. So there are various ones. Say Validity is one that's been around for years and I've always used for clients, so it's definitely worth looking at that one. But there are other ones like Fieldtrick, for example, for assessing fields. And it depends, it depends what you're needing and wanting. If anybody's got any recommendations for data cleaning and assessing data, please do put them in the chat now as well. You can share, because it's always good to share. Right, let's see what else we have. Thank you, Tasman. Glad you enjoyed it. Thank you, Anita. I found you guys useful. Thank you, everyone. Any other questions, let me know. I'm here. So, Mahal, you said that is there a similar admin masterclass for beginners? So this is, I mean, this really is for beginners. But as I say, you know, if you're working as an admin, you're going to be harnessing all these different tasks or working with people that will be doing the tasks. So it is very much, you know, giving the overview of an admin role. But as I mentioned at the beginning, you know, don't feel that overwhelm of like you can't do everything. You won't be like the master of all of these things in day one. You are going to develop these different skills. So yeah, Alexis, for KPI information, I have basically a list of 15 typical KPIs in the book. So what I would go in with to organizations is this like list, you know, to say, well, look, these are the most typical 15 KPIs that you'll measure for ROI. You know, which of these are relevant and are there any others? So, you know, you're not starting from scratch. You know, the 15 KPIs that I present in the book are typically the ones that, you know, you'd often see. So that's a great starting point. It's all in there for you. Thanks, Linda. I'm glad you found it really useful. Thank you, everyone. I'm glad you enjoyed it. So Margarita, will you say it's possible to find an admin role where you are training, or do we have to finish training first, then find the job? Yeah, typically you'll have to be certified, Marguerite, to get a job. You know, people want people to hit the ground running. Unless you're the only difference to that is that you get a lot of accidental admins, right, where they're working in a company and that company's chosen Salesforce and they've chosen to train somebody up. So if you happen to be working for an organization that's using Salesforce, then absolutely you might end up being trained up and becoming as an accidental admin. You weren't hired to do that job, but a lot of people start there. But if you were outside of that world and you weren't in a company where they are, you know, you aren't in that situation, somebody's not going to hire you when you aren't trained, because, you know, they'll want somebody who's certified to do the job. Astrid, yes, I'll send out the recording of the session, no problem. I'm glad you found it useful, Sophia. Thank you, Nazim. So I know we just went slightly over time, but thank you everyone for joining. I hope you do amazing work in your admin roles. And I hope this has been useful for you as a source of guidance and support for you. And best of luck if you're going for jobs. You know, make sure you use this. If you're going for your performance review, make sure you use this. Use it as a way of sharing everything for you as well. Lynn's just mentioned, if you know anybody that's looking to do the Salesforce admin course, we have a Salesforce admin course starting on first week of May. So yeah, if you know anybody that's looking to train up, please recommend them to our admin course as well. They say we want to empower people to be amazing administrators and also amazing Salesforce consultants as well. So, you know, we do cover off everything and we want to see you progress, right? And you know, just be really confident in your roles. It's really important that when people go through our programs, we're preparing people for success and they're hitting the ground with a clear action plan. So very happy to support anybody. Let me know if there's any other questions that you have before we wrap up. I know you're all at different time zones. God knows what time it is in Australia at the moment. It's morning. Angela said, yeah, we can watch the session. Yes, we will send out, I will send out the replay so you can watch it back. No problem at all. Great. Well, hopefully I will see some of you on the consultancy skills course as well. And we will have a Tableau course starting, Astrid. We are planning to do that. We have an instructor lined up. So watch that space. It's something that we'll be looking at for our new sort of year starts May onwards. So we'll be getting things, yeah, in line for sure. Yeah, but if you've got any questions about the consultancy skills course, let me know. As I say, it starts next week. Super great bunch of, you know, we get together as a group every week and we brainstorm everything and chat about different things. And so it means you've got a new peer group as well to lean on and ask questions to. So always really a highlight of my week is running those sessions with everybody and supporting you with your roles. So fantastic. Great. Well, I'm glad you've enjoyed it. Thank you everyone so much for joining. And it's been lovely to meet people who are new. Please do connect with me on LinkedIn if you're not already. Please do leave a review for the book on Amazon. I'd really enjoy that as well, because they will help sort of raise its profile and other people to find it. And thank you so much for joining. And I shall speak to you all at some point very soon, no doubt. We'll see you on the course. Thank you, Mary. I'm glad you ordered the book. Brilliant. Good evening, everyone, or good day, good morning, wherever you're in the world. And we'll see you soon. Thanks, Lynn, for helping.
You're welcome. Thanks, everyone, for joining.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.